Hi, I'm Savannah Jones, and this is part one of a three-part interview with Gina Sansivero, VP of Marketing and Corporate Communications for AtlasIED's Sounds Like Success podcast, with project partners David Injeski, Design Engineer for Pentegra Systems, Dan McGlathery, Pentegra Systems Engineering Supervisor, and Justin Young, General Manager for AtlasIED. In this segment, you'll find out what is going on behind the scenes of the ongoing Chicago O'Hare Airport project.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on AtlasIED's Sounds Like Success podcast. My name is Gina Sansivero. I am Vice President of Marketing and Corporate Communications. And today I have some really special guests with us to talk about an incredible installation at O'Hare International Airport. We have the crew from Pentegra, Dan and David. I'm also joined here today with our General Manager, Justin Young, out of our Louisville facility. David, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Hi, my name is David Injeski. I'm with Pentegras Systems. My title is Design Engineer, and I've been in this industry for about 30 years.
Thank you. Dan, why don't you jump in?
I'm Dan McGlathery. I am a network engineer and as well as the supervisor of engineering at Pentegra Systems. Been in the industry for about 20 years and have been working on this project for quite some time now.
And Justin.
I'm General Manager with AtlasIED. I've been with AtlasIED for about 4.5 years thereabouts. I've been in professional AV for the better part of 15 to 20 years, somewhere around there.
Wow.
I stopped counting after a while.
I think most of us have been in for a while. And then on the other hand, it feels like it was just yesterday that we happened to fall into this craft, right? So, David, Dan, I want to know a little bit more about Pentegra. They're one of our newer partners, but you guys have a history of being innovative, of having some unique skill sets. So what are your strengths? Where do you excel? And what do we need to know about you?
Well, I could start it off just to give you a bit of background. Pentegra as a company was started a little over 20 years ago by two gentlemen, Ed Carl and Greg Augsburger, the two owners of the company. And they built Pentegra through, my understanding of the history, is the acquisition of several different companies, each with their own strengths and different technology systems areas. And there was an audio video company, I think was one of the first they acquired. After that, they acquired a computer networking company and then a telephony company. And Dan, you can add to that if you want.
Yeah, I believe there was kind of a media distribution company in there as well that specialized in school media. But yeah, that was kind of the history of it. They started with just the AV company and then kind of expanded on fairly rapidly after they acquired that company. And I know the history, the foundation of Pentegra Systems was that from day one, everything was going to be central on the network. Everything was going to be around the network. So it was early for that concept back in 2000, but they knew that was where things were going, and they wanted to base the company on that foundation, that everything was going to be centralized around networking.
And I think in answer to your question, Gina, one of our strengths is that very thing, is that, our core tenet is that everything either touches or lives on or is actually part of the data network. And, I think the diverse background as well as the sort of broad knowledge base that all of the people, not only, but these varying departments now, which include audio, video, data, telecom, and security, are all supported by that core group of which Dan is responsible for now, the data networking engineers.
And Justin, I want to ask you a question because Pentegra's core competencies in IP, IT, it might be outside of a traditional certified technology integrator's wheelhouse, right? That's what we call our transportation certified partners. So when looking at Pentegra and when saying, holy mackerel, these people are absolutely going to be our next CTI. This group of individuals has exactly what we need to expand into some of these other core business units that they cover. Gosh, what was your thought process there when saying, okay, Pentegra, we can do this together? This is a huge installation.
Yeah, to add a little context to that, kind of give you the landscape of what I walked into. This job with O'Hare and working with Pentegra was my first large job after joining the organization. O'Hare's one of the crown jewel airports in the U.S., and it was a very intimidating project. There's a huge amount of components and moving parts, and especially with the jump in complexity from the existing public address system that was installed to this network-centric, IP-centric technologies that we're going with. And you're absolutely correct. A lot of our core dealers and integrators that we work with are more of the traditional pro AV guys who are starting to dip their toe into the IP-based technologies. Now I have this next generation of integration firms and partners that are coming from the IT sector. And they are subject matter experts. And what I saw in Pentegra and what the opportunity they presented to us is to really challenge us and really help us kind of reshift our mindset and, rely on their expertise, because normally when we're working with a traditional pro AV dealer, sometimes we're coming from the position of being the subject matter experts for IP-based technologies with our product line and our ecosystems. Well, the tables and the script was flipped in this instance. We had to learn to trust and to put our faith in their expertise, and they were able to demonstrate that right out of the gate. That was a really easy relationship to start forming. But when I walked into the project, we had some opportunities. We were balancing supporting an existing system. We were supporting some new installations and getting them stabilized. And then we were projecting and designing out all this new work over the next few years. And there were some technical challenges we were overcoming, as well as learning this new partner and developing trusting relationship between them. And there was a lot of work that had to be put in very early on, but laying some of that foundation really opened the doors for a very smooth. It was difficult and there were a lot of obstacles to overcome, but relatively, the potential for a job of that complexity to go south, it's ever present. And the expertise and the credibility and competency of Pentegra shine through, year over year through the installation. And I couldn't be happier working with such an excellent firm.
So, Dan, you mentioned that you were working on this project for a long time. How long is a long time when it comes to O'Hare?
Well, for me, it's not nearly as long as David, but for me, I've been on this project, I would say, probably, it's got to be 5 years now, about that. David, how long have you been working on this one?
We started pursuing this project in 2013, so I've been on it since then. Almost, yeah.
Wow.
It was late 2013, so it'd be 9 years toward the end of this year, 2022. But yeah, it was a long road, couple of years just to get to the point where we were brought on board as the selected team to provide this solution, and then it's the careful what you wish for kind of thing.
Sure, absolutely. For those integrators who are really interested in getting into transportation, those types of sales cycles seem really intimidating, right? So what was it about the requirements of the project or the longevity or any other of those kind of unique components of working in the transportation sector that really makes you confident that your team has the capabilities to successfully see it out 9 years later?
I guess I'll jump in on that. Obviously, Justin, you touched on it. that this is, one of the major international airports in the country. It's one of the crowning jewels, IED, now AtlasIED has been in there for a long time. And one of the challenges we saw going in immediately, because one of the mandates in the contract was to reuse as much of the existing systems as possible. And there were 4 existing terminals, each with their own vintage of system types that were in there. And, one of the great things about partnering with IED is that they have the history and the knowledge to go into these basically antiques and pull out information that was very challenging, because some of these early computer-based systems were very fragile and not running very well, and were prone to just stop working. So we had a good relationship in the beginning in getting that partnership to get the information out, share it, and then start to parse that data into a system that actually we developed. It's a cloud-based iPad app into which tens of thousands of data points were entered. And it is now the living document that we use as an as-built system for preventive maintenance now going into the future, as well as all of the changes that are happening out there. So project like this, it's a project site that's measured literally in square miles, and you have so much data and so many moving parts, as Justin said, complex network of stakeholders and entities you're dealing with on site. Even the different terminals are the different fiefdoms of different parts of the transportation and Department of Aviation. So it was a challenge at every level to come up with the methods and procedures. And luckily, we at Pentegra were a bit obsessive about the details. So that lent well, in this case, to a project of such complexity.
Thank you for watching part 1 of this 3-part series of Atlas IED's Sounds Like Success podcast with Gina, Dave, Daniel, and Justin, featuring their partnership with Pentegras Systems. Coming up in parts 2 and 3, you'll find out how their teams work together to manage the many challenges of updating the outdated O'Hare Airport system, and hear about some of their innovative ideas and solutions. Be sure to check out the rest of Atlas IED's podcasts and find out about this project and more.